Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, Dutch slave serfs, peasants, vassals, sons, daughters, mothers, fathers. I want to wish everyone out there probably as heartfelt a happy Father's Day as I've ever given. And so happy Father's Day to everyone out there. I'm all about honoring my father. As my regulars know, my father passed away 4 months ago, and I love my father very much. And I learned a lot of interesting things about the process of mourning your father and celebrating his life. So I'm going to pass on a few of those things, and hopefully people out there will glean something valuable here, because this is a lesson well learned, and I appreciate the nuances enough to think I have something I can tell you about this process. So first of all, I want to point out that all the cliches that you hear are true. You need to spend time with your mother and your father and your family while they're here. And of course, a lot of times we find our family relationships a little annoying and frustrating, and everybody has those experiences. But that's where you learn about love. And I spend as much time with them as you can. It's really true. And of course, the other cliche is about telling your mother, your father, or your grandfather, or your loved ones that you do love them and share your feelings. So those are two cliches that are very true. You don't want to have bad memories or unresolved issues, and you don't want to have things that are left unsaid. And so those are both very true. And I'll take it a step further, because I learned a couple things, and one of them I learned a while ago, and that was about 10 years ago. I knew that my dad was not going to be around that much longer. I wanted to take advantage of the time we had left to find out who he was as a person, and not just my father. So, I started out a couple nights, getting him away from my mom, and taking him out to a tavern. We just got a pitcher of beer, and we just talked man to man, father to son, and human being to human being. And that added a lot of richness to my memories of my dad, and I feel like I'm really glad that I'm not left wondering, who my dad was besides just my father. So I got to learn those things, but be prepared. There's going to be both good and bad. You're going to find out what makes your dad tick, but you're going to also find out what his demons are, what his frustrations and regrets are. But that brings us all into the web of humanity a little more, I suspect. But here's the most important thing I learned. Well, let me qualify that. It's a very important thing I learned. I still don't know what the most important thing I've learned is. But to start a memory chest of your father and of your mother as well. And I kind of discovered this accidentally, because last 4 or 5 years of my dad's life, he kept asking me about some military gear from the Korean War that he got issued when he first joined the military. And it turned out to be these wool gloves and a wool hat and a scarf and everything, all military issue. And he couldn't for the life of him remember where it was. So he kept assuming he must have given it to me. And I kept telling him, no, you never gave that to me. I don't remember. So he just couldn't remember where he put it. And my dad passed away 4 months ago. And of course, afterwards, I'm digging around in the attic, and I found a suitcase inside of a suitcase inside of a suitcase. And the last suitcase I got to was this one. And inside was all the stuff that my dad had been asking me about all those years. And I was amazed and moved to open that suitcase up and find it. And of course, he had packed it so well to make sure that, it didn't get moths and everything in it, and it didn't. So I had these wonderful pieces, and I had this suitcase, and it made me realize that all these little odds and ends, things that I've collected that have connections to my father, and little things that I've inherited since my father passed, all have whole new meaning. Every little thing you have left from your dad, a tangible item, becomes so precious you can't imagine. So, in my case, of course, I've got these military items that my dad had packed and was asking me about. But, all these little odds and ends that seem so insignificant. My dad's bolo ties. I never gave him a second thought. And now that these are all the little things that I have left of my father. All these things are imbued with whole new meaning and become very precious and valuable to you. So I have all the letters that my dad saved that I wrote him, and all the letters that I wrote him in Vietnam. So now I have not only the letters that I wrote to my dad in Vietnam, but the letters he wrote me back. So I have both of those. And all the cards that he kept, what meant something to him all those years. And you're going to be so moved when you find all the things that your dad kept that reminded him of you. So I got, bunches of pictures of my dad when he was in Vietnam, and I have a picture of him, getting the Bronze Star in Vietnam. And so I have one place that I can put all of this stuff now, and all that's left that reminds me of my dad, and it's all one place. So it not only serves its purpose for you, but the things that you have that you can pass down to your other family members. And if you start it nice and early, obviously you're going to be finding all kinds of interesting things and saving them, and they will mean so much to you when that day comes. Here I have a flask. It's got my dad's name engraved on it. That's really nice. And I even have little Valentine's cards that, with Superman on them that my dad got when he was a heartbreaker back in kindergarten and whatnot. And he visited Congress in 1947, so there's his United States Senate chamber with Warren Magnuson. And these things, didn't seem that big a deal, of course, all these years, but now they are precious memories of my father, and I cherish them all. And while I was looking at this stuff, I have an article, and there's my dad getting in a car wreck when he was 19 years old. And here's a newspaper photo. So I guess car wrecks were a big deal back then. But here's my dad, and to the day he died, he has a little had a little bump in his nose from this car wreck. And as it turns out, it says, mishaps marred Father's Day. So here I am telling you about this story. My dad was 19 years old, and here it is, Father's Day, 1950. So 62 years ago on Father's Day, and this is my dad on Father's Day. So anyway, happy Father's Day out there to everyone, and just take some of these tips to heart, and maybe a lot of you have already been doing this, but I recommend it. Creating a memory chest for your father, a memory chest for your mother, and it doesn't matter whether you're 10 years old or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. It's never too early to start this, but it could end up being too late. And like I say, you'll be amazed at what little things have so much precious memory for you now. And my last bit of advice, and it's almost unnecessary in this day and age of technology, but that is to have a video of your father so you have a reminder of what his movements were like and what his voice was like. In my case, I do not have that, and I regret it because my dad was very animated and bigger than life and had a very bellowing voice. Everybody knew when Donald Fox came in the room. And I don't have documentation of that right now. So I'm going to snoop around and see if somebody in the family might have something like that. But that's the only other thing I would recommend is having documentation of your dad's movement and his voice. And that will mean all the world to you when he is no longer around. So once again, my bottom line, happy Father's Day. Very, very, very special day for me. And I celebrate it with all of you today. I'm Eusphalidia. Don't you be one too.